7 months ago, I released a video about the #1 mistake killing your home metal recordings: too much gain. That video blew up and became the best performing video on this channel by far. And today, I'm going to show you a technique that might be even better than the fix I shared in that video. In that video, I demonstrated how turning your amp gain down and putting a tube screamer in front of the amp with the drive at 0 and the volume all the way up produces a significantly tighter, more focused tone than just cranking the gain. And the response was incredible. But quite a few people in the comments pointed out something I hadn't tested. They said they prefer using an EQ plugin in front of the amp instead of a tube screamer. The argument was that a tube screamer, by its nature, is focusing the sound more into the mid-range. That's just what the circuit does. But with an EQ, you get way more control over exactly which frequencies in your DI signal hit the amp, which means you could dial in an even tighter, more intentional tone. To be perfectly honest, I was skeptical. The tube screamer trick is a proven standard, but I decided to give it a shot, and I was genuinely surprised by how effective it was. So the goal of this video is simple. We're going to compare the tone of a high gain amp with the gain turned low to being driven by a tube screamer and then being fed a DI signal that we've EQ'd before it hits the amp. Let's dive in. For all of these examples, I'm using the TSE X50 free amp sim, and the amp settings and IR will remain exactly the same across every single demo. Nothing changes except what's in front of the amp. And every example you're about to hear is the guitar in the context of a full mix. Drums, bass, the whole thing. Because the whole point of tightening your guitar tone is to make it cut through a mix, not to sound good in isolation. Let's start with just the amp by itself with the gain turned low. I have it all the way down to around 2. So listen to how the guitar sits in the mix. It's tight, it's definitely a little bit too clean, and it's missing that push, that aggression that makes an amp really come alive. The guitar is sitting there, is doing its job, but it's not punching through the mix. This is where the tube screamer comes in. Now I'm going to place the free TSE 808 in front of the amp. Same setup as the original video. Drive at 0, volume all the way up, and tone knob in the middle. Let's listen to how this changes the guitar in the mix. Instantly tighter, instantly more focused. The low end gets control, the mid-range jumps out, the pick attack becomes way more defined. The guitar is now punching through the mix instead of sitting behind it. This is a technique from the original gain video, and it works. There's a reason that video performed the way it did. So what's this doing? The tube screamer is essentially acting as a filter. It's cutting some of the super low, flubby bass frequencies and boosting the mid-range before the signal even hits the amp. That means the amp is distorting a signal that's already been shaped. It's tighter because there's less low-end junk to turn into mud. This is proven. This works. But the tube screamer's EQ curve is fixed. You get what the circuit gives you. You can't change which frequencies it's cutting or boosting. You can tweak the tone knob a little bit, but that's it. So what if we could do the same thing the tube screamer's doing, shaping the signal before it hits the amp, but with way more control? That's where a simple EQ plugin comes in. I'm using the stock ReaEQ, ReaEQ. It's free, comes with the DAW, nothing fancy. Let me show you exactly what I'm doing. First, I'm high passing around 100 Hz to remove unnecessary low end. Anything below around 100 Hz in a guitar DI is just going to turn into mud when the amp distorts it. We don't need it. Cut it. Second, I'm putting a tight dip around 546 Hz. This is where a lot of the mud and boxiness lives in a guitar signal. We're not scooping it out completely, just taming it a bit. Third, I'm adding a wide, gentle boost around 900 Hz. This brings out some mid-range presence, the same area the tube screamer naturally emphasizes, but we're doing it with intentionality instead of relying on the fixed circuit. Fourth, I'm adding a larger, wide boost around 3.5 kHz. This brings out more detail and pick attack. This is the stuff that makes your chug sound sharp and percussive instead of blurry. Fifth, I've got a low-pass filter at 10 kHz to remove unnecessary high-end. Just like the lows, anything up there is just going to turn into fizz when the amp gets a hold of it. And finally, I'm pushing the overall gain up by 6 dB. So we need to match how hard the tube screamer was pushing the DI signal into the amp. The tube screamer with its volume maxed is slamming the front of the amp. We need our EQ to do the same thing. So we push the output gain to more closely match that level. So what we've done is create a more intentional, more focused boost compared to the tube screamer. We're cutting the lows, taming the mud, boosting the mids and highs exactly where we want them, and then pushing the whole signal harder into the amp. But let's test this in the context of the full mix and see if it really makes a difference. So this is even tighter and more focused than the Tube Screamer. The low end is more controlled because we're cutting it precisely where it needs to be cut, not relying on a fixed circuit. The mid-range is more present because we're boosting exactly where we want it. And the high-end detail is way more defined because we're bringing out the pick attack intentionally instead of just hoping the pedal does it for us. In the context of the mix, the guitar is cutting through with more clarity and intention than the Tube Screamer version. Now let's listen to the difference, and I want you to pay attention to how the guitar sits in the mix across all three of these. First, we'll play the track with just the amp and low gain, then the track with the Tube Screamer in front of the amp, and then finally with the track with the EQ in front of the amp. To me, that's a massive difference. The amp-only version is clean, but the guitar isn't punching through. The Tube Screamer version gets it there. It's tighter, more focused, more mid-range push. But the EQ version takes it one step further. The guitar is cutting through the mix with more clarity, more detail, and more intention than either of the other two. And you have total control over every frequency. If you want more mid-range, you boost the mid-range. If you want less mud, you cut the mud. You're not locked into what the pedal circuit gives you. In the original gain mistake video, I showed you how turning your amp gain down and using a Tube Screamer with the drive at 0 and the volume at max produces a tighter, more focused tone. That still works. That's still a great approach. But after testing this EQ method, I think I've been converted. The EQ approach takes a little more time to dial in. You have to actually think about which frequencies you're cutting and boosting, but it definitely provides the best results. You get more control, more detail, and a tighter tone because you're shaping the signal intentionally instead of relying on a fixed pedal circuit. Now, to help you with your guitar and bass recording, I put together a free guide for recording guitar and bass DI like a pro. It'll give you the perfect foundation before you apply what you've learned today. The link is right down in the description. And if you haven't seen the original gain mistake video, I highly recommend you go watch that first. It covers the foundational technique this whole concept builds on. I'll link that right here on screen and in the description. If this video helped you out, please hit that like button, subscribe for more content just like this, and let me know in the comments, are you Team Tube Screamer or Team EQ? Now go make your guitar sound massive.